Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the May 13th special meeting of Council. Mr. Clerk, could we do a roll call, please?
Thank you, Mary. Yes. On the roll, Councillor Sharp.
Here.
Councillor Wenas. Councillor Meehan.
Here.
Councillor Chu. Here. Councillor Dhaliwal. Here. Councillor Pootmans.
Here.
Councillor Wong. Here. Councillor Walcott.
I'm here.
Councillor Corral.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Chabot.
Present.
Councillor Penner.
Here.
Councillor Spencer.
Here.
Councillor McLean.
Here.
Councillor Demong.
Here.
And Mayor Gondek.
I'm here.
Thank you.
All right. Oki dada nastada ambawastich and tanse, everyone. Welcome to this meeting. The City of Calgary, where the Bow and Elbow Rivers meet, was historically a place of confluence, where the sharing of ideas, resources, and opportunities very naturally came together. And long before Scottish settlers named it Calgary, the original Indigenous nations of this area had their own names for the land. In the Blackfoot language, it's called Moginstis. The Ithaca, Nakota, Wiskatabe First Nations refer to this place as Wachispa Oyare, and the people of Tsuut'ina call it Gutsis. The Métis call the Calgary area Otisquani. We would like to take this opportunity to appreciate and acknowledge that we are gathered on the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, which is comprised of Siksika, Piikani, Kainai, and Omska-Bibi-Gani First Nations, the Ithaca, Nakota, Wiskatabe First Nations comprised of Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations, and the Tsuut'ina First Nation. City of Calgary is also homeland to the historic Northwest Métis and the Otipemswa Métis government, Métis Nation Battle River Territory, Nose Hill Métis District 5, and Elbow Métis District 6. We acknowledge all Indigenous people who have made Calgary their home. So let's move on to confirmation of the agenda. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Demong, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Sharp. Can we do a voice vote, Mr. Clerk, or would you like e-scribe?
Voice vote's fine. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone opposed to the agenda? Seeing and hearing no opposition, that is carried. And that gets us to item 4.1.
Good morning, Mayor Gondek and members of council. My name is Katarzyna or Kate Martin, and I am the city clerk for the City of Calgary. The purpose of my presentation today is to deliver a declaration with respect to a recall petition to recall Mayor Gondek. The Municipal Government Act requires that the Chief Administrative Officer of the municipality must, within 45 days after the date on which the recall petition is filed, determine whether the recall petition is sufficient or insufficient in accordance with the regulations of any directions or orders within the Municipal Government Act. The Chief Administrative Officer of a municipality must, at the first council meeting after making that determination, make a declaration to council as to whether the recall petition is sufficient or insufficient. In keeping with Council's March 2023 direction, the declaration of sufficiency or insufficiency will be made today at the special meeting of Council. Please note that the next item on today's agenda includes a presentation on the recall verification process, where I will provide detailed information on the process itself, and members of Council will have an opportunity to ask questions. I will now proceed to make the declaration. In accordance with Section 240.8 Sub 2 of the Municipal Government Act, and in keeping with the duties of the Chief Administrative Officer delegated to myself regarding recall petitions within the Municipal Government Act, I, Katarzyna Martin, the City Clerk for the City of Calgary, hereby declare the recall petition to recall Mayor Joytie Gondek received on April 4th, 2024 to be insufficient. I will ask that Deputy City Clerk Fraser pick up the declaration. Thank you. Mayor Gondek and members of Council, the recommendation with respect to this agenda item is that Council accept this declaration for the corporate record. This concludes the matter of the recall petition declaration, and as I said in the next item, I will walk Council through a very detailed overview of the recall petition process. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm looking to see if there's any questions in the queue, and I don't see any. So can I get a mover for this item, please? Councillor Sharp, seconded by Councillor Demong. Thank you. And I still see no one in the queue. So with that, we can go to e-scribe to vote, please.
On the motion on screen, Councillor Wong, your vote, please.
Yes.
Councillor Wyness, your vote, please.
Yes.
And Councillor Demong, your vote, please.
Yes.
Mayor Gondek, all the votes are in.
Thank you. Could you display the results, please? That is carried unanimously. We can move to item 4.2.
Thank you, Mayor Gondek. So as the City of Calgary City Clerk, through the delegated authority from the Chief Administrative Officer, I hold the accountability for the verification of petitions to recall members of council in keeping with the Municipal Government Act. The purpose of today's presentation is to provide information about the Recall Petition Verification Process. For today's presentation, joining me are members of the City Clerk's Office leadership team that, in collaboration with me, have been accountable for supporting the recall verification work. Andrew Brower, Assistant Director, Janine Dryden, Leader of Election Services, and Austin Still, Leader of Election Logistics. Next slide, please. The recommendation before you is that Council receive this presentation for the corporate record. Next slide, please. The slide before you, Council, is a high-level overview of the verification process previously shared with members of City Council, the recall petition representative, as well as members of the public. And it shows the process that would be undertaken to determine the sufficiency or insufficiency of the petition to recall Mayor Gondek that was filed with the City of Calgary on January 30th, 2024, and later submitted on April 4th, 2024. The process began with a count of unverified signatures to determine if the petitioners representing at least 40% of the city's population, which equals to 514,284. The count of unverified signatures was 69,344, and the petition was just determined to be insufficient. In keeping with the legislation, if 5,000 or more petitioners are necessary to make a petition sufficient, a random sample with a 95% confidence is pulled and the verification of each petitioner within the sample is undertaken, instead of counting and checking each petitioner. A 95% confidence level means that 19 out of 20 times the verification process will end in the same result. I will now turn the presentation over to Chief Administrative Officer Duckworth.
Thank you, Clerk Martin, and good morning, Mayor. Good morning, members of council. I'll be very brief. As Ms. Martin pointed out, I have delegated my responsibilities under the Municipal Act through this process to Ms. Martin. However, while not required to determine sufficiency or insufficiency, in keeping with the Municipal Government Act, I made a further request that the City Clerk conduct a random sample and verification of petitioners for two reasons. The first reason was transparency. I believed that it was important to provide additional transparency to the public and parties involved in the process about the recall petition that was submitted. And secondly, it was a learning opportunity. I wanted to test the parameters of the Municipal Government Act and share our learnings with the Minister of Municipal Affairs, who is accountable for the legislation guiding the recall petition process. Sharing our administrative learnings is especially important given that Bill 20, the Municipal Affairs Statutes Amendment Act, introduced on April 25th, proposes that the Minister of Municipal Affairs becomes accountable for verifying recall petitions for members of councils across the province. However, until the legislation is passed, I continue to be accountable for the recall petition verification. I will now turn it back to Ms. Martin to outline further details about the random sample verification process.
Thank you, Chief Administrative Officer Duckworth. Next slide, please. The random sample verification criteria is displayed on this slide. The Municipal Government Act prescribes that in counting the number of petitioners on a recall petition, the Chief Administrative Officer, or myself as his delegate, must exclude the name of any person whose signature is not witnessed, whose signature is witnessed but for which no affidavit is attached, whose signature appears on any page or form that does not contain the notice of the recall petition referred to in section 240.2 sub 2, whose printed name is not included or is incorrect, whose street address or legal description of land is not included or is incorrect, if the date when the person signed the recall petition is not stated, When the recall petition is restricted to certain persons, who is not one of those persons or whose qualifications as one of those persons is not or is incorrectly described or set out, or lastly, who signed the recall petition after the expiry of the recall petition signature period. In addition to the above, we reviewed the random sample for duplicate petitioners. The random sample consisted of 369 signatures. The number 369 has been proven to accurately represent the characteristics of a large population sample with a 95 confidence level. As the population size increases, the central limit theorem does show that the sample size needed to accurately represent a population remains consistent. For any ward in the City of Calgary or for the entire municipality, the sample size needed to meet the 95% confidence level of the population would then be 369. Thus, 369 petitioners were randomly selected from among the petitions submitted. The petitioners were then checked for further compliance with the Municipal Government Act as set out on the slide before you. The results of the verification completed on the random sample were then applied to the entire recall petition. The final count would then be measured against the 514,284 figure to determine if the petition is sufficient. Next slide, please. So as I indicated in my presentation, the unverified count was 69,344 petitioners, or 5.39% of the city's population, and it is therefore insufficient. Next slide, please. With respect to the random sample, among the 369 petitioners in the random sample, there were 369 occurrences of missing notice of the recall petition, 27 occurrences of insufficient or blank addresses, 12 instances of insufficient affidavits. There were 6 occurrences where the witness did not sign the recall petition. There were 2 occurrences where no date was provided or the petitioner's handwriting was ineligible. There were 2 occurrences where the petitioner's signature was missed. There was 1 occurrence of the petitioner having witnessed their own signature and 1 occurrence of a duplicate petitioner. The number of invalid signatures in the sample was 369. Therefore, 100% of the signatures were invalid, and the total number of verified signatures is 0. Again, this is because the notice of the recall petition was not included on any petition pages as required by the Municipal Government Act. And the Municipal Government Act provides that the Chief Administrative Officer and myself as his delegate must exclude the name of a person whose signature appears on any page or form that does not contain the notice of the recall petition. The notice of a recall petition must meet and include 3 criteria. First, identify the councillor to whom a recall petition relates to by name. Identify the representative recall petitioner by name. And lastly, it must confirm that the municipality may direct any inquiries about the petition to the representative recall petitioner and indicate the contact information to be used for this purpose. In addition to the random sample, all petition pages were reviewed and were missing the notice of the recall petition as required by the Municipal Government Act. Next slide, please. Council, in terms of next steps, as required by the Municipal Government Act, the Declaration of Insufficiency will be published on the city's websites, and the notice will be provided to the Minister of Municipal Affairs, to the representative recall petitioner, as well as to Mayor Gondek. Additionally, within 2 days of the Declaration of Insufficiency being published on the city's website, the representative recall petitioner or any person acting on behalf of the representative recall petitioner must destroy any additional copies of the recall petition. Please note that the City of Calgary does not have any statutory accountabilities within the Municipal Government Act regarding the destruction or enforcement of destruction of copies of recall petitions held by the representative recall petitioner or any person acting on his behalf. Next slide, please. For Council's information, I would like to provide the preliminary costs to date associated with this recall petition. The recall petition costs to the end of the random sample verification were approximately $30,500, and these costs include onboarding and training 6 limited-term staff to conduct the count of unverified signatures, as well as the verification of the random sample. Other costs which have yet to be accounted for include offboarding the limited-term employees, destruction of the recall petition by the City of Calgary, and any potential legal challenges. Excluded amongst the costs are the salaries of permanent staff in the City Clerk's office, recall petition readiness work that was completed in 2022 as well as 2023, and costs associated with City partners such as human resources, information technology, and law. Next slide, please. And lastly, in summary, I would like to share an overview of the verification timeline associated with this recall petition. As a reminder, the notice of recall petition was filed with the City of Calgary on January 30th, 2024. From there, our preparation work began. Between February 19th and April 2nd, recruitment and hiring of a limited term or temporary employees workforce took place, and preparations to receive the recall petition were made. Between April 8th and April 18th, the unverified count of petitioners was undertaken. Between April 19th and May 1st, the random sample verification process was undertaken. Between May 1st and May 3rd, the declaration of insufficiency was prepared, along with the request to Mayor Gondek to hold a special meeting of Council today on May 13th. During this period, the Council briefing note that I have included on your agenda was also prepared. The limited term verification team will now be offboarded between May 14th and May 17th. And finally, June 24th is the date the petition materials are due for destructions by the City in keeping with the Municipal Government Act. Next slide, please. This concludes my presentation. The recommendation before you is that Council receive this presentation for the corporate record. Myself, along with the City Clerk's office staff, are available to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. There's a question from Councillor Chabot.
Thank you, Ms. Martin, for your presentation. I guess it begs the question, out of the 369 that were submitted, all 369 were considered invalid. So rather than going into details about what specifically was missing out of those 3 criteria that you referenced, it begs the question as to how is it that those could possibly be missed. And I'll frame it a little bit, if I may. When you run for office, typically you're provided with all the material and the proper documentation by administration as to how to get signatures to be eligible as a candidate for nominee. I would assume that we would have a standard template to provide to an applicant if they were to want to pursue something like this. Was that provided to the petitioner?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Chabot. So maybe I'll start out in terms of the requirements that you were asking about. So there's 3 very specific requirements, and all 3 requirements are set out within the Municipal Government Act. The City Clerk's office did provide information with respect to the recall process on our website on calgary.ca, and we directly linked to the municipal affairs information that is provided to anyone who would be taking on a recall petition process. Unlike within the Local Authorities Election Act that you might have been familiar as a candidate, there are no statutory forms that are required when it comes to the recall process. The legislation sets out that the recall representative petitioner must include certain things on the petition, but that is up to the recall representative petitioner.
Okay, so without going into detail, again, like I said, was there any of those components that were included, or was it all 3 that were missing?
So the component that we determined was not included was the information with respect to giving the municipality the confirmation that we could contact the recall representative petitioner.
So we didn't have his contact information, and it had to be included on the form?
That's right. So what the municipal government provides is that the notice of the recall itself must clearly confirm that the municipality may direct any inquiries about the recall petition to the representative recall petitioner and indicate the contact information to be used for that purpose.
Okay. All right, that's one last question. The money that it costs to do this, where's that going to come from?
I'm sorry, say that again.
The amount that it costs to actually do this verification, where's that money coming from?
So the money that was allocated to this specific recall petition has been funded out of the city clerk's office budget.
Okay, so it's covered.
It was covered.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Let's go to Councillor Meehan, please.
Thank you. I have a follow-up similar to Councillor Chabot around if someone is submitting something like this and they're not sure exactly how to do it, who would be the appropriate body to verify that they are doing the correct thing? Would that be to come to the city clerk's office for interpretation? Is that their own legal, or is that going to the minister?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Meehan. So the City Clerk's Office does not have a legislative statutory role within the Municipal Government Act to be providing information or guidance to the recall representative petitioner. It is up to the recall representative petitioner to be aware of the requirements within the Municipal Government Act, as well as to potentially seek their own legal advice, and if warranted, perhaps consult with municipal affairs, but we do not provide any guidance in terms of how to complete the process, given our statutory responsibilities are related to the verification.
And as a follow-up, in terms of the rules, if something is missing, and can it be provided after the fact, or are there rules sort of to prevent that?
The legislation is clear in the sense that once the recall petition has been filed, we begin the verification process. So when the petition was submitted to the city clerk's office, at that point our verification process begins, and we count the names of the petitioners, and no additional name may be added following the submission. So at that point, once we've received it, there would not have been an opportunity for changes.
Thanks. And my last question is, I think it was CAO Duckworth mentioned that you're compiling a bit of a report for the minister. Has there been any contact with the minister or conversations about that? Or is that sort of, he'll receive the briefing and then there might be an exchange, or has there been any contact there?
So further to CAO Duckworth's presentation, we're committed to seeing the lessons learned and documenting all of our findings. As Council is aware, with Bill 20, the accountability for recall municipal petitions is looking to be transferred from a municipality to municipal affairs. I would certainly welcome any opportunity to work with my partners in government relations to connect with municipal affairs and share some of the findings and experiences that we've had.
Thank you so much. Those are all my questions. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Let's go to Councillor Wong, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Martin. Ms. Meehan made reference to notifying municipal affairs. In terms of the petitioner, have we notified the petitioner already?
That will be within my next steps, Councillor Wong. The first step was for me to make the declaration publicly here. Following this meeting, the recall representative petitioner, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, as well as Mayor Gondek will all include a copy of the declaration, informing them of my declaration.
Okay. And you made reference to any petition information collected. They're obligated to destroy it, correct?
That's correct. The Municipal Government Act, has provisions that require the recall petitioner to destroy copies of the petition within 2 days, and also anyone who is acting on their behalf. The city has a longer destruction requirement, and that takes us to June 24th.
Okay. And what if that information, whatever way, gets copied and outside of the petitioner's hands and is used or misused accordingly? What recourse is there?
So within the recall petition provisions set out in the Municipal Government Act, there is no statutory or enforcement provisions for the City of Calgary to take action on any sort of misuse of the information. I would recommend that if that is a circumstance which comes to light, then that would be a matter for the Calgary Police Service to investigate. But to be clear, there is no enforcement or investigative provisions assigned to the municipality with respect to that.
Okay, and that will be communicated to the petitioner as well?
That information is already contained in the Municipal Government Act.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions, so can I get a mover for this item, please? Councillor Demong, seconded by Councillor Putmans. Thank you. I don't see anyone in the queue for debate, so let's go to e-scribe to vote.
Councillor Demong, your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Wong, your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Gondek, all the votes are in.
Thank you. Could you display the results, please? That is carried unanimously. Mr. Clerk, is there anything else on the agenda?
No, there is a briefing under item 6.1 and just adjournment.
Great, thank you. Madam Clerk, thank you very much for informing us on how this process worked. Appreciate your time today.
Thank
Can I
you.
get someone to move to adjourn? Councillor Penner, seconded by Councillor